In a quiet suburban neighborhood lined with manicured lawns and strict HOA guidelines, a retired veteran named John Reynolds lived in a modest brick home at the corner of the cul-de-sac. His house was not the largest, nor was it the newest, but it carried a sense of dignity. In the front yard, firmly mounted on a tall, sturdy pole, the American flag waved proudly. To John, it was not just fabric. It was a reminder of decades of service, sacrifice, and the brothers in arms he had lost along the way. Every morning, he would step outside, straighten the pole, and make sure the flag flew high. For years, the neighbors admired his dedication. Some even felt safer knowing a man like John lived among them. But not everyone shared that respect. On the opposite side of the street, a woman named Karen Whitfield had recently moved in. She was the newest member of the HOA board, and she saw the neighborhood less as community and more as her personal kingdom. Her reputation quickly spread. She measured grass with rulers, sent out letters for trash cans left out too long, and reported cars parked a few inches too close to the curb. The moment she laid eyes on John's flagpole, she decided it was a violation. The HOA handbook had vague rules about unauthorized structures, and Karen was convinced the flagpole fell under that definition. In her mind, it clashed with the uniform beauty of the street. She began sending letters, each one more aggressive than the last, insisting that John remove it. Each time, John ignored them. To him, the flag was protected by law, and no HOA rule could strip him of the right to fly it. Karen's frustration grew. She walked her dog past his house every morning, glaring at the flag like it was a personal insult. She muttered to other neighbors, trying to rally support, but most avoided her or politely defended John. That only fueled her anger. She believed the community should be under her control, and John's defiance threatened that. Finally, one morning, after spotting John raising the flag once again, she snapped. Instead of sending another letter, she picked up her phone and dialed 911. She reported John for a supposed violation and claimed he was causing a disturbance. She painted herself as a victim, insisting that his flagpole was breaking the rules and that he was refusing to comply. As the dispatcher listened with confusion, Karen believed she was making progress. She was certain the police would come, force John to take down the flag, and prove once and for all that she held authority in the neighborhood. She paced by her window, waiting eagerly for the flashing lights that would signal her victory. But what she didn't know was that her call was about to bring consequences she had never imagined. Because when the officers arrived, they wouldn't see a nuisance. They would see a symbol, and instead of tearing it down, they would stand taller because of it. The stage was set. Karen was ready to watch John lose. But the outcome would be very different. When the first patrol car pulled onto the street, its lights flashing softly in the early afternoon sun, Karen straightened her posture and adjusted her blouse, as if preparing for a formal victory. She hurried outside, waving her arms to catch the officers' attention, eager to guide them toward her neighbor's yard. In her mind, this was a moment the neighborhood would finally bend to her will. Two officers stepped out of the vehicle, their expressions calm but alert. Karen wasted no time launching into her story, pointing dramatically at John's flagpole. She described it as a violation, a hazard, and a disruption to the neighborhood's order. She spoke loudly enough for nearby residents to overhear, hoping to shame John in front of them. John, meanwhile, had been in his front yard, watering the grass. He watched quietly as Karen gestured wildly at his flag, then at him, painting him as a villain. He said nothing, only standing tall with a hose in his hand, his calm demeanor in sharp contrast to her frantic performance. The officers listened, nodding politely, but something in their eyes revealed they were not buying the story. When Karen finally paused for breath, one of them turned his gaze toward the flagpole. The American flag fluttered gently in the breeze, its colors vivid against the clear sky. The officer's expression softened, and he straightened his posture without even realizing it. The second officer asked Karen to step aside. He walked up to John and extended a hand, thanking him for his service. Karen froze, her smile faltering. This was not the script she had written in her mind. Instead of reprimanding John, the officers were treating him with respect. The first officer examined the base of the flagpole, noting how securely it was anchored and how well-maintained it looked. There was no hazard, no code violation that mattered in the eyes of the law. More importantly, the officers knew the state and federal protections that allowed veterans to fly their flags without interference. Karen's complaint was baseless. The neighbors began to gather. Some peeked from behind curtains. Others stood on porches or sidewalks, curious to see what would unfold. When they witnessed the officers shake John's hand and commend him, a ripple of approval spread quietly through the street. Karen's cheeks flushed red as she realized the attention had shifted, not to her authority, but to John's dignity. Still desperate, she raised her voice again, demanding that the officers enforce the HOA rules. But one of them calmly explained that HOA guidelines did not override federal law. The right to display the flag was protected, and no amount of neighborhood politics could erase that. Karen's words fell flat, echoing into silence as the officers dismissed her complaint. John remained calm, nodding in gratitude but never gloating. His silence spoke louder than any argument could. He had faced battles far greater than this, and the respect he commanded came not from defiance, but from the life he had lived. Karen's eyes darted from the officers to the neighbors now watching with clear disapproval. Her plan had backfired. Instead of humiliating John, she had exposed herself as petty and overbearing. Yet, deep down, she was not ready to surrender. In her mind, there had to be another way to win. As a patrol car drove away and the flag continued to wave proudly, Karen clenched her fists. The police had failed her, the neighbors had judged her, and John still stood undefeated. She retreated into her house, but this was not the end. She was already plotting her next move. Behind the closed curtains of her living room, Karen fumed. The humiliation still burned. In her mind, the officers had made a mistake, and the neighbors had sided with the wrong person. She told herself that rules were rules, and if the police wouldn't enforce them, the HOA board would. She drafted long emails, attaching blurry photographs of the flagpole, and demanded an emergency meeting. But what Karen underestimated was the ripple effect her actions had already caused. Word of the 911 call spread quickly. Neighbors whispered about it during evening walks, shaking their heads at her pettiness. Some had children who played in John's yard. Others had family who had served. To them, the idea of calling emergency services over a flag was insulting. Her reputation, already fragile, began to collapse. When the HOA board finally convened, Karen arrived with binders of supposed evidence, ready to argue her case. Yet the atmosphere in the room was not in her favor. The other board members listened politely but exchanged glances that revealed their unease. They knew that going against a veteran's right to fly the flag was a losing battle, both legally and morally. Karen's words landed with less and less weight until, finally, the president of the board reminded her that HOA authority did not supersede the law. Her complaint was dismissed outright. This should have been the end, but Karen's persistence only deepened the divide. Neighbors who had once tolerated her began avoiding her altogether. Invitations to block parties and cookouts conveniently missed her mailbox. The dog walkers and joggers who passed the house no longer offered friendly waves. She was left isolated, staring from her window as the neighborhood bonded more closely around the man she had tried to tear down. John, for his part, never gloated. He continued his quiet routines, raising the flag at dawn and lowering it at dusk with the same solemn respect. Yet his presence seemed to grow larger in the eyes of those around him. Neighbors stopped by to shake his hand, thank him for his service, or simply share small conversations that reminded him he was appreciated. His flag became more than his own. It became a symbol for the entire street, a marker of pride, resilience, and unity. The turning point came one Saturday morning when several families gathered unannounced in John's front yard. They brought their children, small flags in hand, and asked him to teach them how to fold one properly. John obliged, guiding their hands gently, showing them the careful creases, the significance of each fold. The moment became a quiet ceremony, one that carried far more weight than Karen's rules ever could. From her window, she watched, but no one looked back toward her. By the end of summer, Karen's influence had evaporated. She was no longer feared or respected, just avoided. The flagpole, which she once saw as an eyesore, now stood as a testament to her failure. The police had honored it, the HOA had protected it, and the community had rallied around it. And so, the veteran's flag continued to wave proudly, higher than before, while Karen faded into the background of the very neighborhood she had tried so hard to control. Her call to 911 had not brought John down. It had only lifted him higher. The regret she carried was not only for losing the battle, but for losing the trust of those around her. In the end, the flag had won, and she had no choice but to live beneath it. Do like, subscribe for more.